Hello and welcome to another episode of the Dayton Christian Connection, where we seek to build a gospel-shaped community together and serve one another, grow in all the topics related to Dayton Christian and serving God. And so thank you for tuning in. Today's episode is going to be really exciting as I have Matt Baker, our head of school, on again. Matt's going to be sharing with us a very important topic, super relevant to current families, and that relates to EdChoice scholarship. We've heard about EdChoice. It's been surrounding everything pretty much related to school education the past few months and year, really. And so Matt's going to be here today to fill us in on fact versus myth, maybe some misunderstandings, and help straighten out what is true about EdChoice funding. So Matt, thanks again for coming on.
Glad to be here. Excited to be here, and interested in just making sure that we are informing our parents, informing our grandparents even that are a part of these processes, and make sure they have all the information they need to make wise choices, which the Bible tells us to do.
Yep. And we know those renewal forms for current families are around. Maybe families that are prospective are thinking, hey, I've heard about this being in the courts, and so but before we even get into all of that, how they can apply, is it going to be there? Let's just talk about what the EdChoice program is. Maybe Matt, you can tell me where it came from, and That'll probably help some of our listeners that didn't even maybe know much about it.
Yeah, brief history. I'll keep it the Reader's Digest version. It started actually in Cleveland, 1995. Cleveland was going to be taken over by the state. One of the parameters that the state put in is that they would allow students that were in a low-performing district, which Cleveland was, to be able to take part of their money and go to a school district that was in close proximity but higher ranking. So it started in 1995. It was litigated numerous times since then. The main case in 2002 went all the way to the United States Supreme Court. So multiple litigations at the state level. All of them have won and legitimized this Cleveland scholarship. All the way at the Supreme Court level, again, to legitimize that this is constitutional at both the state and the federal level. And then they sent it back to the state to say, okay, if you've got an issue, that you guys need to work this at the state level. Since then, that Cleveland scholarship, we've added EdChoice and then EdChoice expansion. So those three all together, along with our autism scholarship and John Peterson scholarship, make up all scholarships that can be offered to private schools or non-traditional public schools like charter schools and things like that.
That's helpful. And I'm not a legal scholar, but I think the word that is used a lot is precedent. And it seems like we have a lot of precedent at this point for EdChoice being something that's going to hopefully continue to stay around as it relates to private school funding.
Yeah, and not only in the state of Ohio, there's many cases in other states that would give precedent to the same legalization of using tax dollars for private school funding.
Very good, very good. So when we know that obviously there's a lot of opinions about this, okay, and we can see those, whether it be social media or legislators, lawmakers saying their opinions about it. But can we talk about the current court case involved? How did we get there? Who are the plaintiffs, and what is the issue with funding this? Why is it a problem?
Yeah, Vouchers Heard Ohio put together a panel of about 300 school districts, and they created a case with those 300 as the plaintiffs, in essence, and took it to, they were allowed to choose what court. They took it to Franklin County Court. They were allowed to pick the judge as well, a judge that they felt would be a positive thing for this case on their side of things. And they're basically saying that the funding is unconstitutional because the state constitution says they should provide a system of education for our citizens. They feel that by having EdChoice, it's creating a second system. And in essence, that's where they say the unconstitutionality comes from, is that this second system is created.
Okay. And with that, obviously, we have a view, or Dayton Christian might have a different view on that, because the opposite helps us when we understand it. So from your perspective, maybe what is misinformed about their main argument?
Yeah, the main concern that people are kind of stating in the public, if you will, is that it's money being taken away from public schools and given to private schools.
I've seen that argument a lot.
Absolutely. It's actually two different budget line items. So just like in your own home budget, you might have an electric bill and you might have a water bill. So they're saying basically that if you didn't pay your water bill, you would take that money away and put it towards your electric bill and in essence pay it ahead of time even, or maybe pay more money than you need to, and you'd have some sort of
Get something else fancy in
better
your house.
electric,
Better
if you will.
electric,
Yeah. So it's actually not the case. So it's two different line items. There is a line item put in for public school funding. Absolutely. It's billions of dollars. And then there is a line item specifically for supporting the scholarships in total, which again include the Cleveland, the autism, the John Peterson, EdChoice, and EdChoice expansion.
And sorry.
No, yeah, it's a separate line item. The assumption is, and this is where the rub is in essence. So a lot of people in the public think if we took away money from EdChoice along with these other scholarship opportunities, it would automatically go into the public school funding, and that's just simply not the case. Is there an opportunity for the next biennium budget to have that as a possibility if EdChoice went away? Yeah, I guess it could be. You do have 150,000 students now taking the EdChoice scholarship that would have to find maybe funding or go back to their public schools. So that wouldn't be easy to do because all of a sudden you'd have an influx of students and you wouldn't have any more money. I want to make sure parents understand that a lot of school districts are on what's called the guarantee. So being a former public school superintendent, I can speak to this. In '07, they created a funding model that was a dramatic change from everything before '07. They recognized that a lot of school districts would have went poor if the '07 funding model was funded at 100% year one. So they put something in called the guarantee. My old school district that I was a part of was on the guarantee. So I was there for 7 years. I got the exact same amount of money for 7 years in a row. Although we fluctuated in population, I was still always getting the same amount of money. In fact, it would have taken me losing 330 students for my dollars to change.
Wow.
A lot of school districts are on the guarantee. Many are on the guarantee, meaning if you have an influx of 200 kids or you have a decrease of 200 kids, you're still getting the same amount of money. So for people to say, well, it would automatically go over there, no, that's not necessarily the case, because if you're on the guarantee, you're not getting that extra funding anyway.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. That helps because we all have heard this, that the EdChoice shouldn't be funded because it's taking dollars from public. I mean, that is the quote. And so hopefully this data it can be sent to those that are saying that. Maybe you can share this video and you can let people know that that's not necessarily true. It's two different pots of taxpayer dollars. Did that come from the COVID funds originally, or is it just in general taxpayer dollars are collected and given allocations?
Yeah, it's given allocation.
Okay.
Some people would say maybe another argument that they would say, well, if I have students leaving a public school system and they're going to a private school system, I have less students for funding. So there are students that are on ADA funding. So that means how many kids affect how much money they're getting. So there are some school districts that if they left that school district and went to another school district, there would be some reduction. The problem is they're still going to spend that money per student. They're just going to spend more on the students that are there. So it's just kind of like you said, a reallocation of the funds that they're still getting. It's just going to be moved to different kids.
I see. So what's the timeline of the current case? Because a lot of our families have literally asked us, is my scholarship gone? I just had someone this morning ask me, they said, oh no, is it gone? I said, no, we're just talking about it's in the courts right now. Right. So how does it work when something goes to court with this?
June of 25, this Franklin County judge felt that the system was unconstitutional, which we kind of saw that coming. We knew that was going to be the case. So it will be appealed to the 10th District Court of the state of Ohio. It's already in that process right now. And the person defending it is the Attorney General, David Yost. So he believes that the system is constitutional. He believes that students should have this opportunity, as well as the state has created a biennium budget that has it in there. So he's basically defending the budget, defending the choice of the state to allow this program to continue. It will more than likely lose in the 10th District Court. We're aware of that. And that will be in the year 2026. So the projection is that in 2026, there will be a ruling from the 10th District Court that will say it is still unconstitutional. Now, in the first ruling and more than likely the second ruling, they will stay the judgment. Stay the judgment means we're not going to change anything. We're not going to stop funding it, because think about it, 150,000 kids all of a sudden wouldn't have any potential funding, and then there would just be chaos. Plus, a lot of people would lose votes, and they'd be concerned about re-election and things like that. So more than likely, just like in June of 25, that judge said, it's unconstitutional, but I'm not going to stop it. I'm going to let it go through the appeals process. It will eventually, the next step after the 10th District Court, where it will probably lose, will go to the Ohio Supreme Court. The Ohio Supreme Court, if you were to look at the makeup of the court, lends itself to be in the favor of school choice. There's 8 Republicans on that, I believe 1 Democrat, and even if that wasn't the case, it's the majority that do support school choice. We have a couple governor candidates that are going to be vying for the new position here in just a few short months or so, really, if you think about it. There's obviously one candidate that's very strong school choice, one that will be opposed to it. That may help just continue the process and get it done maybe a little bit faster if you have a governor, as DeWine has been supportive but not necessarily an advocate for school choice, where there are other candidates that are coming up that are more of an advocate to say, hey, this is something we need to continue and make sure that it gets through the system so we can put it to bed, in essence. Yeah.
We hear so much that, which is, as you've clarified, a little bit of misinformation or misunderstanding that, okay, students that use these EdChoice vouchers, they're hurting public schools. But I would wager to say, if this was to fully go off the table, boy, those that benefit from these would be hurting. We would lose quite a number of students. And what we can do at Dayton Christian for these families that have conscientious maybe objections to certain worldviews taught in the public school system, they would lose out on coming here, and that hurts. So I often feel like the hurt of private school students might be overlooked in this process. Do you think so?
Oh, I think certainly, because the majority are in public schools. I mean, when you look at the millions of students going to school right now, they're going to public schools. So yeah, they're going to look at the majority rather than us. You mentioned something about the spending at the public level. I did want to just kind of note a general topic of spending when it comes to public schools. So we have data obviously available from the public school systems. And if you look at from 2015 to 2025, the amount of students that are attending public school has dropped pretty dramatically, to the tune of probably somewhere around 700,000 students that are either going to homeschool, private schools, charter schools, so on and so forth. But yet, looking again from the State of Ohio website, it's their numbers, not ours. Spending has actually went up, and it went up significantly. So the average, the school district on average is spending about $18,000 per student. Now there are definitely some school districts that don't spend that, and there's some that spend quite a bit more. But as it started at a little under $14,000, then that same time period, now we're averaging over $18,000, and the amount of state dollars and federal dollars has stayed pretty consistent, even though the amount of kids in public schools has declined by hundreds of thousands of kids. So I think some of that lends itself to that argument of, are we really hurting public schools by giving EdChoice dollars? Because they're actually still spending at the rate and even higher rates than they were within the last 10 years. And especially since EdChoice has been injected as an opportunity through the expansion scholarship, spending has still went up and the amount of kids has went down. So, just it may be another misnomer or misinformation.
Another thing that came into my head was, if the target's on our back, sometimes we think of these local levies that public schools have to run. Those often aren't successful because of court rulings of that being unconstitutional. I feel like that can cause further misinformation, and people can get frustrated and say, well, if the private schools weren't taking the EdChoice, which again, we have to clarify, that's a separate pot of taxpayer dollars. Public school funding is in this pot, and anything else that was extra from EdChoice, where it started, where it grew, that was its separate set of taxpayer dollars. It's not line item different. So, okay, that's very, very helpful. So if you do, listeners, if you do see that this does not pass through the 10th District Court this summer, don't panic. Don't be alarmed. It will likely be stayed, which would mean that your scholarships will continue to apply here at Dayton Christian. This is not going to be fully resolved until likely a Supreme Court appeal. And at that point, Matt, we'll have our final answer for whether this can stay long-term or not.
Yeah, and you asked timeline. That would be more of a 2027 more than likely. Now, it could move back through quickly. And I want to note to the listeners that, of course, we can't guarantee the final outcome. The only thing we can guarantee is that we're going to trust in God through this process. We believe with these setups that we have and the way you look at the makeup of the court system, especially at the Supreme Court level for the state of Ohio, that we would feel confident. And the people that run School Choice Ohio and some of these other advocacy groups, I meet with them usually quarterly, and they say you should feel confident that EdChoice is sticking around. Very confident is actually the term they would use. So as a listener, feel confident. If something were to go awry, of course, we would make you aware of that and see how we can respond to it. In fact, Cody, we were talking earlier, how should listeners respond to their state representatives, their senators, to make sure that this information of what school choice is doing for Ohioans, how do they go through that process?
Well, part of it is just the stories of the success that was done. So the process that you need to get informed, I'll talk about my story and then your all stories, but the process of getting information is crucial. You got to get the factual information. So we encourage everyone that's a current DC or prospective DC family to go to our website, look under the admissions tab, and you'll find another tab that says tuition and scholarships. That will direct you to all the information we currently have for EdChoice, how to apply. And that's very important. But there's also, and this is where I want to tie in my story and encourage everyone else to do so too, there is School Choice Ohio. That is a website that you should go to where you can find a tab that's called Advocacy. It's going to put your local representatives, the names and contact information. And here's why that's so important, Matt. When I came here out of public schools, had a great experience at my public school. Nothing was making me flee other than I just had the Spirit leading me to disciple my family into a worldview that was consistent with our beliefs. That's the biggest overarching reason. And this scholarship has helped me. Of course, I'm blessed that the faculty is able to provide a discount here, but the EdChoice helps even more. And that was able to help me. Of course, we all know this. Private school salaries aren't the same as public school salaries. No matter how hard we try, they're just not as much. And so this has really helped my family be able to go to Dayton Christian School and to be able to, consistent from K through 12, Lord willing, have an education supported by the worldview. That is the most important thing. And so many of you have a similar story that the EdChoice Scholarship has either helped you come here and keep you here, or it will help you to come here and keep you here. So what we would love to encourage you to do is to, once you go to that School Choice Ohio website and you find your local representatives, would you consider reaching out to them to let them know some of these success stories? Because, Matt, I think it's harder to take something away if these local lawmakers hear how important it is to real people and real families. What do you think about that?
I would agree 100%. Yeah, I mean, we tell we tell people all the time to share their salvation story with those that are lost, because their story may mimic the life that this person is going through, the choices that they've made. It's a similar situation here. You've been blessed to be able to be here and bring your girls here, and they've had a great experience. And like you said, it's building in them a foundation. We want that for as many students as possible. We want to partner with as many students as possible. We're making expansion within the school to allow for more students, but it helps when you share that story of how school choice has benefited your family with your representative, because there's going to be a fight for money at the biennium budget. I mean, there always is. Everybody's got their hands out. We're included in that. I would say, just for our listeners to understand, more than likely as the new budget will come out here in the next, we'll say year or so, we're probably not going to see an increase in the actual dollars towards the scholarship, but keeping the program is the most important thing. So having dollars that are allocated is important. Would it be nice if they upped those dollars? Of course it would, but in my opinion, as the leader and the one that's kind of checking the books, just keep the program alive, and we'll do everything else we can here at the local level.
That is a win.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll take that. We'll take keeping the program rather than losing it. Well, I just am thankful for your time, and I'm thankful for the EdChoice Club personally. And I know that there are varying views out there. We respect views towards public education. We're both former public educators.
Absolutely.
We are not here today to say that budget constraints on public schools aren't a real thing, and that we don't feel for them. But we just want to very clearly state that we don't feel it's fair fully for EdChoice recipients to be blamed, or students who go to private schools to be blamed as this is the reason why public schools are having a hard time with budgets. It's simply not fully true, and we want to make sure that you all are informed on the facts. So anything else to include on this one?
No, it's been great. Appreciate your time. Appreciate the listeners' time, and we're excited to just bring them this information.
Yep, that's exactly right. We knew this is a big topic, really important to get as the new application periods have begun and the renewals have begun, and you're just seeing a lot of information in the news. We wanted to make sure to make this episode to keep you informed. We thank you so much for your time. God bless you, and reach out if you have any questions to Matt Baker, and he would love to help you further learn about the EdChoice program and how you can use that to benefit your access to Christian curriculum and education. Thank you so much.